Hello, dial 906.
Dial 906 is a theatrical open forum that looks to explore a variety of topics. Every podcast is open to the public. If you wish to find out more information regarding future Dial 906 recording sessions, visit our website, 906theaterco.weebly.com. That is theater, theatreco.weebly.com, or look us up on Facebook. Last time, on Dial 906, we began a discussion on modern versus classical theater. The moderator was 906 co-founder Brian Elliott, and joining the discussion were 906 co-founders Sarah Sarka, Emma Cooling, and Aaron Sarka. We were also joined by our dear friend Christine Doherty. In this second half, we are joined by the final 906 co-founder, Ashley Stein. And now, for your listening pleasure, Part 2 of Dial 906 for Modern versus Classical Theater.
Please introduce yourself briefly. Stand to be recognized. Who are you?
Okay. I am Ashley. I am a co-founder and an ensemble member of 906. And I would say I gear myself more towards modern and contemporary writing and theater. And the reasoning being for me is that I really, really like simple conversational writing. Sure. And that I think there's a lot of things that you can find and play with in a sentence where, all you get is, for example, fine. If that's your line, and the different things that can come out of just really simplistic writing.
One of the questions that Aaron sent in, he sent in several, but we've been at this a while. So the question he picked of the ones that he sent me was, how much of a role does sentimentality towards older works play a part in our appreciation of something? Is it actually better, or do we see it as better because it is old?
Oh boy. Sarka, can you clarify that at all?
Aaron would like to start an argument.
No, I honestly don't want to start an argument.
Fist fight.
I honestly don't want to start an argument.
Fist
I think that there is a mentality that we have to love something because it is well loved. And the only reason it's well loved is because we feel that we have to love it because people before us, and maybe that does mean that something is good. If something has stand the test of time and people have loved it through hundreds and hundreds of years, is it necessarily good, or do we see it as good and defend it because so many people before us have done so?
Is this because you hate Hamlet?
No, it's not because I hate Hamlet, because I don't hate Hamlet. I just don't think Hamlet is as good or as amazing as it is so.
Flame.
As it is so. But that's not what this is about. That's not what this is about. There are other things included in this. I think a big one for me, and this isn't even a classic show, but things like Oklahoma.
What?
There are reasons why. I know. But that is actually a pretty unanimous thing here. I don't like Oklahoma, but it is a well-loved show, and there are reasons why people love it. But there's also one of those shows that people saw when they were young, or their parents told them, you gotta go see Oklahoma, and there is sentimentality. There is sentimentality attached to that. Does that sentimentality mean that it is good? Does the fact that I was in this classic play as a child, or saw this classic play as a child, make it good? Or is it, how much of a role does that play in it? Because I think it is a big part of it.
I am interested, Aaron, in maybe a different example. And the reason why I'm interested in a different example, just let me clarify this for a second, is because Oklahoma is historically significant.
Okay.
For the development of musical theater.
Yeah.
Oklahoma was, for our listeners who might not know, was more or less the first musical.
It began the golden age.
It began the golden age of musicals, and it was one of the first musicals that used the songs it used the songs as a progression of plot.
Okay. Here's a better
So
example.
I'm interested in perhaps a different example, please.
A good example. I think that we'll be able to have a pretty good discussion. And just as a good example, Chekhov. I think Chekhov has done a lot. It has done a lot because I think people see it as this important classic work that people were doing, but at the same time, I don't think that Chekhov's writing is necessarily good. I think he was attempting
Again, here come the flame
at
wars.
comedy that was not funny, and maybe he thought was funny at the time, maybe people at the time thought was funny, and I believe that there is a sentimentality attached to Chekhov's work that makes it better than it is. And I think a lot of Shakespeare has the same reason, but I don't want to get into that too much with you because I could die. But I think that is a more relevant example.
I don't know, because I think Chekhov, again, is tricky because it's historically significant, right? Without Chekhov, we wouldn't have modern theater as we know it.
Let's get to Sarah, please.
I have an example.
Yes, please.
Here's an example about sentimentality versus worth, and do I think it's good because it's sentimental, or do I think it's good because it's good? And this might set us off. I love cats.
Wrong!
Why?
Wrong! I'm with
You're
Christine
lying.
on this one.
Let me tell you why. Because they played it on PBS and I couldn't stay up late enough to watch it, and then I had to go buy the VHS and I had it in my room and I watched it all the time. It's important to me. I like it. I am intelligent and educated and I know it's not good. What does that make it?
Well,
Kitsch?
on that same vein, I did not know who Shakespeare was, just as an example, until I was 13 years old.
Oh, I want to give you a hug.
Wow.
And
Good love for Aaron's
no, just because I grew up in a family that had no idea what theater was, and then I moved to Alaska where it was afraid that people were afraid of it. My first experience was seeing a production.
We're afraid of theater in Alaska.
Yeah.
We could rule the place.
My first experience with Shakespeare is seeing a production of Othello performed as an interaction between Native Alaskans and Russians,
Woof.
which was a very brilliant take on it.
Yeah.
It was really well done, but that was my first experience with it. So I don't have a childhood sentimentality with it. I don't have I remember reading Hamlet when I was 10 years old, or any of that. And my first production that I was in was when I was 14. I was in the production of Taming of the Shrew. And I love... The thing is, I love Taming of the Shrew because of that, but it's not necessarily a great show. I enjoy Shakespeare, but I think that a lot of it has to do with the fact that it's important in the same way you think Chekhov and Oklahoma was important. But I think there's a lot of it that is not necessarily great.
Well, here's perhaps an example that, except for I can't remember the title of it. Brian, you're gonna have to help me out.
What are you looking for?
Shakespeare, Apocrypha, starts with a P.
Pericles.
Pericles is an example I can get on board with.
Shakespeare did not always hit the mark, everybody.
Yeah. I mean, Pericles was written by Shakespeare, but God, is it a terrible play. It's boring, and
I've never even heard of that.
Right.
And that's why it hasn't. That's why you have it. You know what I mean?
Because it's not, and that comes down to that filter. Some good plays are filtered through. There's a reason why
Right,
people
but we're talking
enjoy them.
about
Right.
trying to direct back to topic. We're talking about plays that have stood the test of time
Right.
that everybody knows about.
Right.
And
Are they
I
good
guess my point
because...
is that you slap William Shakespeare on a poster and people go see it.
Right.
You know, and
Right.
Pericles is an example. Oh God, here I go, pissing off all of the Shakespeare fans. But A Winter's Tale. Is
It's
an
not
example.
great. It really
It's
is.
not great, guys.
It's
really
not. It's not.
It's not great.
But I think it'd be best for us to try to remove Shakespeare from this argument, just because.
Well, I think that Shakespeare is actually not a bad place to start for the argument, because I think because Shakespeare is so prolific, I think people look at Shakespeare and they think to themselves, "Ah, yes, it is Shakespeare."
I had better like
You
this.
know, part right.
I think the idea with Shakespeare is I had better like this. It is important for me to like this,
Right.
and I think that comes
It
down
makes
to a
me seem smart
sentimentality.
to like this.
I think it comes down to I know people who are intelligent who like this, so I had better like this.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. What's there?
I don't know. I feel like I'm just a mouthpiece right now. But I was someone who said they did not like Shakespeare. I did not like Shakespeare. I understood what it was. I did not like it. I did not understand why I had to like it until unrehearsed. And I feel like I'm just a mouthpiece because I brought it up like 5 times. I'm not even part of the company. But like,
So at this point, I feel that it is necessary to explain.
Yeah, do that.
That unrehearsed is a technique of performing Shakespeare that was developed by a man named Patrick Tucker in the 90s. He developed it in a book called Secrets of Acting Shakespeare, and the idea behind his theory is that Shakespeare and his associates did not have time to rehearse in the way that we think of today. That in the mornings they would have rehearsed things like fights and songs and dances. In the afternoons they obviously would have performed because they performed during light hours.
There was no artificial light, so they
Yeah.
couldn't do that.
And in the evenings they got drunk because, that's what you do. And there are also instances, not specifically of the Chamberlain's Men, but of other companies in the same era that produced plays, as many brand new plays, as many never seen before plays, as 10 in a week.
Yeah.
And so there would not ever have been that amount of time to rehearse in the way that we think. So Patrick Tucker's theory is that there's a code inherent in the plays of Elizabethan times that allow you, the actor, to know where to move and when to move and why. Things like the difference between thee as being an intimate, you must be close to your scene partner, and you as being formal, you should be further away from your scene partner, giving you blocking and etc.
As someone who always found, and I'm just going to use the term that I always use that you've always heard me use, I've always found Shakespeare masturbatory. I've always found it as a way for actors to get up and show how they can act